For Hamilton Mountain in 30 seconds or less.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the question from my colleague. I will tell you that as a broadcaster for 20 years, I very much look forward to working on this bill. I'm very proud and happy to be part of the Heritage Committee working on this legislation. I think that the world of broadcasting would not have long to live if it were not for this legislation and the actions of this government to support our Canadian heritage.
Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. L'honorable député de Oakville, North Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My riding of Oakville, North Burlington is home to some of Canada's most innovative global leaders in technology and clean energy. I recently joined the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry to announce an investment of $27.2 million from our Strategic Innovation Fund in Burlington's Westinghouse Electric Canada to ensure its next-generation small nuclear reactor will be successfully licensed in Canada. This technology will result in a transportable source of clean energy to serve rural and remote communities reliant on diesel. Canada is a global leader in nuclear safety and energy, a zero-emission, clean energy source. Our government is committed to supporting innovators like Westinghouse develop and deliver solutions to global challenges like climate change to ensure that Canada achieves its target of net zero emissions by 2050. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Madam Speaker, Kelowna Lake Country lost a wonderful spirit, Onofrio Karatolo, or as most called him, Ono. Ono studied at the seminary for 11 years, and his family received their visas to start a new life in Canada. In May 1960, they embarked on a voyage from Italy, making it to Winnipeg. Soon after completing English lessons, he owned Universal Travel Agency till 1979, and then relocated his family and parents to Kelowna. Ono was an entrepreneur at heart, owning numerous stores and businesses, and most recently, Ace Screens and Tint. Having a strong work ethic and wanting to stay involved, Ono, at 83, never fully retired, as he loved meeting new people. Ono was proud to be Canadian while preserving his Italian heritage, and was an active member of the Kelowna Canadian Italian Club and the Sons and Daughters of Italy Galileo Lodge. Ono was always generous and volunteered throughout the community. You'd always see his warm smile and hear his big personality. He always greeted my family and I with open arms and was gracious in teaching me a few sentences in Italian that I could use at community events. My heart goes out to his entire family, and may he rest in peace.
The honourable member for Parkdale High Park.
Yesterday, we reached an agreement to bring Ontario in line, finally, with every other province and territory to make affordable childcare a reality for all Canadian families. The price of childcare will be cut in half by December and reach an average of $10 a day in the next 5 years. 86,000 new childcare spots will be created in my province alone. This agreement matters, Mr. Speaker. It matters for families in Parkdale High Park who face skyrocketing childcare costs, who are making tough decisions about how many children to raise. It matters for women across Toronto who, given the financial constraints, were more often than men the ones who chose to stay home with their kids. These women now have the option to stay in the workforce. It matters for children around the country who will benefit from greater access to early learning, which will help their development. Finally, it matters for elected representatives. I heard my constituents' repeated calls to address this inequity, and I and our government got to work. Yesterday's agreement demonstrates that with determined advocacy, we can rise above voter cynicism and deliver for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, today I would like to speak about Mélanie Raymond, the Director General of the Carnival of Quebec from 2016 to today. Mélanie, your work at the Carnival of Quebec has been remarkable. It is a wonderful event, and you have shown great leadership. You have renewed the activities that are offered, and you have faced the pandemic without ever forgetting that Quebec's Carnival is a local and national event of great importance. Mélanie, I know that when it comes to your next projects, you will do the same incredible work. You are brave and empathetic. You are worth your weight in gold. You have shown the entire team of the Carnival and everyone living in Quebec City that the Quebec City Carnival can accomplish anything. You can be very proud of this. It is an honor for me to have crossed paths with you, and I hope to meet you again. Thank you.
The honourable member for York Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we recently seen an increasing number of anti-Semitic incidents across Toronto and in my riding of York Centre. Public schools have been vandalized, teachers harassed, and faculty and students at the University of Toronto made to feel unsafe and less than. I am safer on campus if I do not identify as Jewish is something that I've heard time and again from university students in the schools of social work, medicine, and education. The safety of Jewish Canadians in public spaces is not conditional. Jewish Canadians cannot face marginalization or denigration by virtue of their faith or connection to their community. When I first took my seat in this House, I shared that day with the announcement of Erwin Kotler's appointment as Canada's Special Envoy on preserving Holocaust remembrance and combating anti-Semitism. His work is essential. The events of the past few weeks and generations of anti-Semitism demand that we clearly define and address it as we have done through the IHRA definition. These are difficult conversations, Mr. Speaker. We know that diversity is a fact, but inclusivity is a choice and one that requires respectful inclusion of Jewish voices in our community spaces. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
When Russia invaded Ukraine, Chilliwack-based Hungry for Life International sprang into action, using their local knowledge, network, and team in Ukraine to provide humanitarian aid to those directly impacted by the war. The Hungry for Life team, led by Chilliwack's own Chad Martz and his wife Mary, a Ukrainian national, has already provided food and shelter to thousands of people there. Since the invasion, they've purchased and distributed over 400 tons of food to those in need. Their team has made hundreds of trips into conflict zones to deliver critical aid to those who cannot escape. They partnered with local churches to provide shelter to thousands of refugees fleeing the violence. To date, Hungry for Life has raised over $1.5 million for their Ukrainian relief efforts, and the need continues to grow. On behalf of the people of Chilliwack Hope and this entire House, to Chad and Mary and everyone at Hungry for Life, we thank you for the incredible, life-saving work you are doing for the people in Ukraine.
The honourable member for Mississauga East, Cooksville.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, for the first time in 36 years, Canada's national soccer team qualified for the FIFA World Cup. Team Canada will be traveling to Qatar from November 21st to December 18th. Led by a new generation, a golden generation of players, a world-class coach, supported by an entire country, our national men's team earned a ticket to the world's biggest sporting event with a historic 4-0 victory over Jamaica. The entire country is proud of these determined players who stand out in the biggest leagues in Europe and who are the heroes of many young Canadian soccer players. Today, we want to thank all of Team Canada for this magical moment as you move on to the next round on the world stage. Know you have our full support, and we're cheering you on. Everybody, go Canada, go!
L'honorable député de Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, Westmount.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to bring to your attention the passing of Carrie Ashton, a dear member of our community of Notre-Dame-de-Grâce and a beloved member of the NDG Minor League baseball community. Serving as the head coach of the NDG Junior Lynx team from 2001 to 2011, he led the team to 6 consecutive provincial championship titles. But more importantly, Mr. Ashton had become an inspiration to people around him by demonstrating courage in the face of his health condition through his dedication to his players and to the baseball field. C'est avec ces accomplissements impressionnants.
Thanks to these impressive accomplishments, he will become one of the recipients of Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee medals.
My deepest sympathies to his wife Sharon, to his children Wayne, Rebecca, and Taylor, and to members of the community who had the chance to know this inspiring human being. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Lévis-Lotbinière.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, more than 151,000 Canadians this year will need more than 15 weeks of EI sickness benefits in order to convalesce after a serious disease like cancer. Mr. Speaker, we can do more for them. Bill C-215 would move that total from 15 to 52 weeks. During that time, these benefits could be offered to Canadians who are going through a difficult time. Mr. Speaker, I would like to celebrate the courage, determination, and resilience of those who are suffering from serious illnesses. Members here support you and will be wise enough to put aside partisanship and guarantee additional financial security for all Canadians by adopting Bill C-215. I would like to invite Canadians to follow the debate which starts tomorrow on March 30th. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South, Hespeler.
Today I would like to recognize a small business that is unlike any other in my riding of Kitchener South Hespeler. The Cambridge Butterfly Conservatory is a privately held attraction in Cambridge, Ontario that is recognized as one of Ontario's iconic attractions, drawing many tens of thousands of visitors every year to the Waterloo region. The 10,000 square foot indoor tropical conservatory houses thousands of free-flying butterflies and actively funds and implements butterfly conservation research. In addition, it is important to the health and mental well-being of those who visit, importantly providing guests with a respite from the harsh realities of the past 2 years of COVID. Since opening in 2001, over 300,000 school children have participated in the Conservatory's educational programs. The Conservatory also manages a robust outreach program, visiting libraries, schools, seniors' homes, and community centres. Please join me in congratulating the Cambridge Butterfly Conservatory as it celebrates 21 years of serving the community.
L'honorable député de Bellechasse-les-Ettes.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Eches-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, I would like to pay tribute to the religious congregation of Sœurs Notre-Dame du Perpétuel Secours. It was founded in 1892 by Joseph Onésime Rousseau and Virginie Fournier, and this community settled in Saint-Damien-de-Buckland. These hard-working women gave over their talents to the service of the most vulnerable and to teaching inhabitants of rural parishes. We owe to them historic buildings, a historic centre, publications, and archives. As of 1894, the community extended its roots throughout Quebec, and in 1948, these sisters also settled in Latin America and Africa to offer their services with great devotion to populations there. As these sisters are leaving Saint-Damien-de-Buckland, I would like to thank them warmly for their inestimable contribution to the well-being of society, and I'd also like to thank them for the heritage they are leaving us. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Grand Prairie Mackenzie.
Mr. Speaker, this Friday, April 1st, the NDP Liberal Coalition government will make life less affordable for Canadians by breaking their promise and increasing the carbon tax again. Right. Canadians can't afford this April Fool's punishment, especially those living in rural and northern communities like mine. They're already paying the price for this Prime Minister's incompetence with the highest inflation rate in a generation. These skyrocketing prices for life essentials are unaffordable for most Canadians, and many families and seniors in the Peace Country are already at the breaking point, and this tax increase will be devastating. This crisis, created by the Liberals and supported by the NDP, will lead to higher prices, higher taxes, more debt, and less accountability. The carbon tax is an absolute failure, and it should be scrapped, not hiked. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are no fools, and on April the 1st, they'll know that this tax increase is no joke.
L'honorable député de Acadie-Bathurst.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Mr. Bradshaw, a former member from the area, passed away earlier this week. Madame Bradshaw often said she was an ordinary woman, but the truth was quite different. She was extraordinary, a woman of great heart and a great Acadian. Wherever she went, she showed great warmth and compassion. And I'm sure anyone who got wonderful hugs would confirm that.
Advocacy or politics was all about giving back to those in need and helping people who simply needed a little head start in life. Elle n'acceptait tout simplement pas que des gens puissent vivre dans la pauvreté.
She just couldn't accept that people were living in poverty, and she did everything she could to help them. We owe great gratitude to her for her service to the community. On behalf of federal Liberal MPs from New Brunswick, we would like to offer our most sincere condolences to her friends and family. Thank you, Ms. Bradshaw. Rest in peace.
For Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing.
Mr. Speaker, the climate emergency is real, and we all have to redouble our efforts to achieve net zero emissions. So today I rise to highlight two forward-thinking, innovative individuals on Manitoulin Island. Craig and Kelly Timmermans know that being part of the solution to climate change and reducing or eliminating electricity costs means changing the way we think about energy. In 2020, Craig and Katie built their new radio station for Great Lakes Country 103 FM and Hits 107 FM, powered by solar energy, which created Canada's only off-grid radio station. With excess energy to spare, Craig will be installing a single Class 2 green energy EV charging station offering competitive rates with the view to expand. Mr. Speaker, it's vital that we acknowledge the work of those leading the way in mitigating climate change. So today I say cheers to Craig and KT. Your entrepreneurial spirits show that we can embrace the shift to green technology and reinforce the fact that transitioning off our dependence on fossil fuels is truly doable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Drummond.
Monsieur le Président, dimanche soir à la grande...
Mr. Speaker, on Sunday, at one of the most important events in Hollywood, Quebec once again celebrated the success of one of its greatest ambassadors. Denis Villeneuve's film Dune got no fewer than 6 Oscars. Although everyone would agree that this was the type of film where even the most experienced director could have gone wrong. But this wasn't the first time that Denis Villeneuve appeared at this prestigious ceremony. In 2017, his film Arrival got 8 nominations. In 2018, Instant was nominated in the category for Best Foreign Film. And this year, Dune got 10 nominations. And I'd say that Denis Villeneuve's greatest accomplishment is to have confirmed that he fully deserves his position within the select club of the greatest directors of our time. His collaborators celebrated his remarkable talent and his human qualities, how much others enjoyed working with him. One thing is clear, Denis Villeneuve will have many more projects which will astonish us over the coming years, and Quebec will continue being proud of him.
The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Friday's April Fool's Day, but Canadians across the country aren't laughing because the NDP Liberal carbon tax is going up. That means home heating bills, electricity bills, and already sky-high gas prices are all increasing. Inflation continues to rage out of control. The Carbon Tax Coalition now has an agreement that will continue to trash our world-class energy industry. While the new NDP Prime Minister ignores the pain of everyday Canadians, other countries and jurisdictions around the world, including 11 U.S. states, are cutting gas taxes, carbon pricing, and even income and business taxes, all in an effort to reduce the cost of living. The Alberta government is also doing their part to help hard-working Albertans lower the price of fuel by eliminating the provincial gas tax while prices remain high. The people in my riding are now looking to Ottawa to do the same, but this government wants to punish them for driving to work. Canadians need relief. The NDP Liberal government must stop making Canadians' lives miserable and scrap this horrible April Fool's Day carbon tax hike. Thank you.
The honourable member for Brampton North.
Mr. Speaker, it's with great sorrow that I inform this House of the passing of my good friend and constituent, George Majuri. The funny thing is that we didn't start off as friends. George, or otherwise known by his Twitter handle as Tio Area Fan, and I first met when he tweeted at me shortly after the 2015 election. George wanted me to know that he didn't vote for me and that he was going to hold my feet to the fire and make sure that I honored my position and worked hard to deliver for our riding of Brampton North. You see, George loved Brampton, and we may not have always seen eye to eye, but we both loved our city. George taught me the value of political discourse and that sometimes the voices that challenge you the most become the ones that lift you up and support you and eventually vote for you too. Not because you always agree, but because you take the time out to hear each other out. George was a proud Canadian who gave back to his community and was one of the biggest TFC fans I knew. He would have been so proud to see Canada's men's team qualify for the FIFA World Cup, especially because 7 of the team players were from the one and only Brampton. George, we will miss you.
Oral questions, question orale. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Mégantic-Clérable. Mr. Speaker, everybody's looking to Canada. Today, the NDP Liberal government has announced that it's turning its back on its friends. They haven't met their greenhouse gas emissions targets, and now that's going to cost jobs. Met with the ambassador of the European Union, who clearly said that Canada must play a greater role in providing these natural resources, particularly in the context of the war in Ukraine. How many billions will this plan cost to Canadians?
To the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member for the question. The emissions reduction plan announced today is an ambitious, achievable sector-by-sector roadmap for Canada to achieve its climate targets. Canadians have been clear, Mr. Speaker. They want to see clean air, good jobs, a healthy environment, and a strong economy. Mr. Speaker, the emissions reduction plan outlines the practical next steps to continue delivering on these priorities from coast to coast to coast to coast.
Good job.
The honourable member for Mégantic-Lérable. Mr. Speaker, for a number of weeks I've been sitting in this seat in the House, and there's one thing that people have been talking to me about. It's the inability of this NDP Liberal government to answer the least question posed by the opposition. Yesterday I asked about measures to counter the disastrous effects of inflation on the grocery costs. And I was talked to about the GDP. I asked about scientific evidence for the vaccine mandate, and I got a litany of figures that were unrelated. There are as many examples as questions asked. Let's try with an easy question today. Is inflation costing Canadians more, or yes or no? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, our government understands that the cost of living is an important issue for Canadians, and that is why we have reduced the middle-class taxes and increased them for the 1%. That is why we have created an index. The Canada Child Benefit, a single mother can receive up to $1,300. And now we will have $10 a day daycare for all Canadians. The honourable member for Mégantic-Lérable. One more, Mr. Speaker. In 3 days, this NDP Liberal government will increase taxes. In 3 days, it will push inflation even higher, along with the cost of absolutely everything. This NDP government likes 3 things: big spending, more taxes, and an endless deficit. The Conservatives are clear on our side. We are opposed to any increase in taxes that will undermine families. Will the NDP Liberal Prime Minister suspend the carbon tax to let Canadian families breathe? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives continue to promote a false sense of reality. Our economy is doing very well after the recession. Our GDP increased by 6.7% in the fourth quarter, which makes us the second strongest G7 economy. We have recovered 112% rather of jobs lost over the pandemic, compared to only 90% in the U.S.
Well, today the Liberals released their 2030 emissions reduction plan, which is their attempt to reduce emissions across the Canadian economy. But last week, the PBO showed that the Liberals didn't actually account for the cost of something simple like the carbon tax across the Canadian economy. Wow. If they were that lazy and sloppy in their examination of the carbon tax, how can Canadians have any faith that a multi-sector approach will not be a disaster for Canadian jobs and pocketbooks?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And once again, the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that the majority of households will receive more in climate action rebates than they pay. That's 8 out of 10 families, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, like the Minister of Health...
Order. Order.
Tell the truth, Terry.
I'll just wait. I'm just waiting for everyone to and then I'll ask the Parliamentary Secretary to start again and answer his question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was going to say, our friendly Minister of Health loves numbers, so do I. So let me quote a few for the honourable member. A family of 4 will receive up to $745 in Ontario in rebates, $830 in my home province of Manitoba, $1,100 in Saskatchewan and Alberta. Mr. Speaker, we're fighting climate change, and we are supporting affordability.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Yeah, not when the cost to the Canadian economy is factored in, right? They can't even do that simple math. 8 minus 4 is all they can do. Let's talk about some other Liberal math. The Minister of the Environment and Climate Change at committee said they've spent $60 billion to reduce greenhouse gas emissions since 2016. Guess what? They've gone up. So if they're going to spend $60 billion to increase carbon emissions, how many trillions are they going to spend to ruin the financial security of Canadians with this plan?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we know that if the Conservatives were in power, that our emissions would be up 12%, Mr. Speaker. We have flattened the curve. And, Mr. Speaker, we know that pollution pricing works not only to reduce pollution, but to drive innovation and help create the clean growth economy that is exploding around the world. We know where the world is headed, Mr. Speaker. It's to lower carbon energy. While the Conservatives are stuck in the past, Mr. Speaker, we are looking to the future.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every day, 5,000 Ukrainian refugees are asking to come here. The press news asked the minister this question, and his office responded that they note a rising trend in recent days without any explanation. Are they serious? People have been at war for 34 days. 5,000 ask for help every day. And since the beginning, Canada has only taken in 6,000 people, including permanent residents. It's a failure, Mr. Speaker. When will the government charter planes to go and help these people?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, the work that we've done over the last number of weeks has been extraordinary. We've now seen since the beginning of the year more than 12,000 Ukrainians have arrived in Canada. They are here now. Mr. Speaker, we've also introduced new programs just the last couple of weeks that have seen tens of thousands of applications come into the system. We have seen people arrive as recently as yesterday in the province of Alberta. We're going to continue to work not just to get people here, to make sure they're supported when they arrive. I look forward to continuing the spirit of collaboration I've enjoyed with the Bloc Québécois over the past number of weeks to welcome as many people here as quickly as possible.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie, Mr. Speaker. It's not 12,000, it's 6,000. The minister is wrong. Once again, Air Transat raised its hand to say that they're just waiting for the government to ask in order to help, as it did in Syria in 2015. Air Canada is also in discussions with the government. We can't understand, Mr. Speaker, that on day 34, Canada is still not there for women, children, and seniors who are asking for help. Even air carriers want to help. They are faster to react than the government. What is the government waiting for to take action? The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, to a certain degree, the Honourable Member's argument is self-defeating. On the one hand, he says we're not working with the airlines, but he acknowledged in his question that we're having discussions with the airlines. We continue to work not just with the airlines, but members in Canada who want to make generous donations. There was a flight that literally arrived last night in Edmonton, Alberta, carrying Ukrainians who have fled to Canada. We're going to continue to do what we can, not just to get them here, but work with generous private donations like this, but also work on behalf of the federal government to facilitate the entry of as many people as possible to Canada as quickly as possible. A crisis like this demands we take action, and I'm proud of what our government has done today.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The plan to reduce emissions proposed by the Liberal government today is quite disappointing. It doesn't include fossil fuel subsidy elimination. It doesn't include a clear plan for workers to know that they'll have a good job today and for the future. It is a plan that continues to do the same thing. More money for fossil fuel sectors and a free pass. When will the Liberal government respond to the crisis of the climate crisis with the urgency that it deserves?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the question. I'd like to emphasize that our government is advancing on many fronts to address the oil and gas emissions. On top of the cap to reduce oil and gas emissions, we are implementing the Clean Fuel Standard to accelerate the adoption of cleaner fuel. We are putting a price on carbon pollution through to 2030, and we are phasing out fossil fuel subsidies 2 years in advance. And, Mr. Speaker, we are seized on the just transition.
The honourable member for Burnaby South. The reductions emissions plan proposed by the government is disappointing. This includes the same things we've seen in the past, more money for oil and gas companies. We haven't seen the elimination of subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. When will the government understand and listen? The oil and gas industries are not the solution to the climate crisis. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, our emissions reduction plan is our practical roadmap to fight climate change, create jobs, and ensure that Canadians are global leaders in the transition to a clean economy. And let me just cite some of the measures that we're introducing, Mr. Speaker. We're going to make it more affordable for Canadians to switch to electric vehicles, improve building codes, and invest in greener buildings, build a greener electricity grid, reduce oil and gas emissions, and, Mr. Speaker, we're going to support our farmers.
Good job.
The honourable member for Prince Albert.
Mr. Speaker, last week I was in Washington meeting with U.S. lawmakers, business leaders, and other stakeholders, and I heard a blunt message from our U.S. friends. Canada has a reliability problem. I've been told that Canada can't be counted as a major supply chain partner. The government's public policy failures combating supply chain shortages and other trade disruptions has inflation at 30-year highs. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are hurting. What is the plan to improve the trading relationship with our #1 trading partner?
What's the plan?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the question from the member opposite, and the plan is as follows. Continuous engagement with the U.S. administration at the highest levels. That means the Prime Minister and the Minister of International Trade. Secondly, a Team Canada approach, which involves the member opposite who just asked the question. He was included in a recent trade mission with the Minister of International Trade, so that we are taking a full, comprehensive, non-partisan approach. Thirdly, it is to emphasize to all actors on both sides of the border the economic interests that are at stake, both on this side of the 49th parallel and in the United States itself. Trade irritants hurt both of our constituents, and we are determined to address this issue. Merci.
The honourable member for Bellechasse, Lévis. Mr. Speaker, young people cannot purchase a home. They have to camp out in their parents' basements. Seniors are struggling to buy food and pay for their medication. Gas is $1.85 in my riding today. At the same time, the Liberal government is reaching agreements with the NDP, which also wants to spend blindly. The government has done nothing for several months. What is it going to do to help real Canadians and Quebecers?
Honourable Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, this is what we've done since coming into office. We've invested over $30 billion, re-established federal leadership through the National Housing Strategy. We propose to bring forward a housing accelerator fund and turn more Canadian renters into homeowners. That's what we're doing. The party opposite has voted against every single measure that I mentioned, and they have no plan and no credibility on the issue of affordable housing, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member, Kent Leamington.
Here. Mr. Speaker, the United Kingdom implemented a properly structured grocery code of conduct after trying the Australian model, which failed. UK consumers are now experiencing lower food costs at the grocery shelf because their supply chains operate more efficiently. Here, the potential CP rail strike triggered threats of fines from our retailers to our national food suppliers 3 weeks even prior to the strike having a deadline. Mr. Speaker, the cost of living is skyrocketing here. Canadian families can't afford to put food on their tables. When will this NDP Liberal government implement a properly structured grocery code of conduct? Today?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Monsieur le Président. Je peux vous assurer que...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll tell you this is something that is very important to us. During my last meeting with the Ministers of Agriculture for the provinces and territories, we made it a priority. The Minister Montaigne in Quebec and I are chairing a committee, and we're waiting for a report in the next few days. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Lefjord. Mr. Speaker, it's moving time soon, and people are concerned and even discouraged because there's no available housing, and housing is not affordable. Furthermore, everything is increasing in prices. Prices are exploding, and I'm not just talking just about groceries and gas. Ask Canadians if things are going well. They've lost trust in their economy. When will Canadians get to be the top priority?
The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, our government has invested over $30 billion in affordable housing since coming into office. We re-established federal government leadership through the National Housing Strategy. But unfortunately, the Conservatives have opposed virtually every affordable housing initiative that we've introduced. And it's getting worse, Mr. Speaker. Maybe the honourable member needs to speak to the Conservative member for Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry, who stood up in this House and said we should pull back from the National Housing Strategy. That is what they believe, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians can see that.
It's like a 15%.
The Honourable Member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Peterborough-Kawartha, 26-year-old Jonathan and his partner will soon be the proud first-time homeowners of an 1,100 square foot, two-bedroom bungalow with no garage for a screaming deal of $729,000. But wait, there's more. CMHC will take another $20,000, and they get to pay another $1,600 in taxes to CMHC. Wow. We have a housing crisis. People need homes they can afford. So why are we punishing first-time homebuyers and rewarding CMHC?
That's right. The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, we do agree on the importance of enabling more Canadians than ever before to access the dream of home ownership. That is why we introduced the first-time homebuyer incentive. But they voted against it. As recently as last week, Mr. Speaker, the Conservative member for Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry said that we should stop helping first-time homebuyers. Maybe she needs to talk to him.
Order. The Honourable Member for Barrie, Springwater, Oromadante.
Mr. Speaker, a February 2022 report by the Barrie and District Association of Realtors indicates the average selling price of a home in Barrie is now over $950,000. Wow. This is a 36% increase compared to the same time just 1 year ago. Wow. The report also stated that prices have risen 86% over the past 2 years in Barrie and the surrounding area. This astronomical increase in home prices has now made home ownership only a dream for most. Would the Prime Minister please tell Canadians what his government is planning to do to stop this rampant price increase in the housing market and make home ownership a reality again?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Through you, not only will I tell the honourable member what we've done, I'll also tell him what they have done constantly to oppose measures to help Canadians. Whether it's the first-time homebuyer incentive, whether it is the Canada Housing Benefit. You heard another member talking about rental supports. They voted against the Canada Housing Benefit, Mr. Speaker. And as recently as last week, a number of members in that side of the House have called for us pulling back from the National Housing Strategy. They've called for no more help for first-time home buyers. They have absolutely no credibility on this issue.
The Deputy.
The Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Jean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Emergency Travel Authorization Program is a failure, and it's slowing the arrival of Ukrainian refugees in Quebec and Canada. There has to be an airlift in order to go and get them, and we can deal with the paperwork here once they're safe. And to do this, the government can ask Canada Border Services for help. They are trained in immigration. They can help to collect biometric data, and they would probably be very proud to help. Will the government create an air bridge and ask Border Services to help families with the paperwork? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question, but his concern that he's demonstrated in recent months for the people of Ukraine and its willingness to help the government design measures that are actually going to advance the arrival of Ukrainians. I would point out, with respect to the situation involving biometrics on the ground, we actually are opening a second visa application centre in Warsaw. We sent more teams that arrived yesterday, and we're going to continue to boost that capacity. I should also point out that for certain low-risk cohorts, there will be certain individuals that will no longer be required to have biometrics, so we can facilitate the entry of more people into Canada as quickly as possible. On the airlift, we're continuing to have conversations with airlines to arrange to get as many people here as quickly as possible, and I look forward to continuing to cooperate with the member in this pursuit.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. That's not enough for us, nor for the Ukrainians, Mr. Speaker. It's day 34 of the war. We no longer have time to get bogged down in paperwork. Border services officers can help once the Ukrainian families are here. They are, in fact, already trained. They are already working in the airport, so they're there. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, they've already done it. They took care of the biometric data for Syrian refugees in 2015. And day 34, will the minister note the urgent need to take action and ask border services to help?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, he drew an analogy to the situation in Syria, where we intervened after the 2015 election 3 years into a conflict. He mentioned it's day 34 of the conflict in Ukraine right now. Let me tell him some of the things that we've done. We've extended the ability of people who are already in Canada to stay. We've waived fees for applications through IRCC. We've expedited applications in the system. Almost 12,000 people from the beginning of the year have arrived. We sent teams and equipment into the region before the conflict. More have arrived yesterday. We created a new expedited pathway and attached an open work permit so people can support themselves. Yesterday, we advanced settlement supports. We've removed the biometrics for certain individuals in low-risk cohorts. We're going to continue to do more as much as we can, as quick as we can.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, he says the only people who are saying it's going well are the Liberals. At some time, we have to face facts. The government is failing. It doesn't have resources in Eastern Europe to take care of refugees from Ukraine, but it has resources here with border services officers to support the Department of Immigration. There are even employees who are telework and who would probably be honored to work on the ground. The government has the duty to transform this failure into success. Will it, first of all, charter flights and go and get families? 2, mobilize border services so that these people can be taken care of here. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, he suggested the only people who are saying that it's going well are Liberals. I would invite him to speak to one of the 12,000 people from Ukraine who are actually in Canada that have arrived since the beginning of this year. Mr. Speaker, we've been leveraging resources not only internal to our department, but from other departments from the very beginning of this effort. I'd point out to him, if he thinks there's not capacity on the ground, that just yesterday, more staff arrived in Warsaw, in Vienna, in Bucharest, in Budapest, in Prague, and in Bratislava. We're going to continue to send resources where we see the people moving. That is the best and most responsible way to act, and we're going to do everything we can to help as many people fleeing these circumstances that are vulnerable today.
The Honourable Member for Medicine-Hat, Cardston Warner.
Thank you, Speaker. The NDP Liberals' planned carbon tax increase this Friday will have dramatic impact across the country. We know the carbon tax has significant and disproportional negative impact on prices for the poor, and everything continues to rise. Businesses in my riding have indicated that increased carbon taxes will lower their profits, undermine competitiveness, and limit investment. When will the coalition government give Canadians a break and cancel their planned carbon tax increase?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Well, once again, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Parliamentary Budget Officer for his work in pointing out that the price on pollution is progressive and gives 8 out of 10 families more in climate action rebates than they pay in. Putting a price on carbon pollution is recognized, Mr. Speaker, as one of the most efficient ways to drive down pollution. And again, Mr. Speaker, let me point out that the Conservative member for New Brunswick Southwest is on the record as saying his province should go back to using the federal carbon price. I agree with that member, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, my Conservative colleague introduced a bill that would remove Liberal carbon tax from grain drying and heating. At a time when global food security is so important, this government continues to restrict our agriculture industry. This bill would have passed in the last Parliament if the Liberals had not called an unnecessary election. Will this government help support Canadian farm families by supporting C234?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
I can tell you that no later than this morning, the Minister of Environment has announced a significant increase to our program to support the agricultural clean technology. So we have tripled the budget as promised, and I can tell you that this is helping quite a bit, very significantly, I should say, our farmers to afford energy efficient technologies, including grain dryers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Tobique-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, recently at committee, the Commissioner of the Environment revealed that there is no metric in place to measure how much Canada's carbon footprint has been reduced as a result of the carbon tax. This is the core policy of this NDP Liberal government's environment plan. And we have no way to know if it's even working after over a decade of being in use in some parts of this country. What we do know is that this tax is ineffective and punitive, and that disproportionately affects seniors, farmers, producers, and those living in rural communities and small towns. When will the Prime Minister abandon this failed policy and get off the backs of the hardworking Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Honourable Member for his question. And Mr. Speaker, we know that pollution pricing works not only to reduce pollution, but to drive innovation and help to create the clean growth economy that is exploding around the world. This means billions in economic development and the good jobs of today and tomorrow. We know where the world is headed, Mr. Speaker. It's to a low-carbon economy. Mr. Speaker, I would say once again, the Conservatives are stuck in the past. We are looking to the future.
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Well, that was overwhelming. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The last thing Canadians can afford right now is anything that will make life less affordable. Yet the Liberal government wants to raise the carbon tax by $10 a tonne on April 1st. Not only will this cost Canadians an extra 11 cents a litre at the pumps, but it'll also have an inflationary impact on the cost of living, rising the price of groceries, energy bills, and everything. How can this government justify its high-tax, high-deficit agenda when Canadians across the country are already struggling to make ends meet?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Honourable Member for the question, and perhaps the Honourable Member didn't hear me when I cited some numbers from our various provinces a little earlier. This year, a family of four will receive up to $745 in Ontario in rebates, $830 in my home province of Manitoba, $1,100 in Saskatchewan and in Alberta. Mr. Speaker, we're fighting climate change and we're promoting affordability.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Millions of Ukrainians continue to flee violence in their country. The majority are women, children, and seniors. The Ukrainian Canadian Congress says, quote, there are virtually no federal supports for Ukrainians. This government must do everything it can to get Ukrainians and other displaced people to safety and help them settle in Canada by ensuring access to supports like language training, employment assistance, childcare, healthcare, and housing, and more. Will the minister guarantee that these vulnerable people get resettlement supports no matter where they are in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for her question, but more importantly for her sincere concern for the well-being of those who fled Ukraine and come to Canada. I'm very pleased to share with her that yesterday we announced that we would actually be extending settlement supports to Ukrainians who have landed in Canada, including employment assistance, including language training, including other measures that we make available to refugees who come to Canada. We continue to work with provinces and territories to see what more we can do to support people when they get here. It's not enough that they arrive. They have to be set up for success once they get to Canada.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, last week I asked the minister when he will provide timelines, targets, and funding to respond to the calls for justice of the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls. Their response? Reconciliation is a journey, not a destination. What a gross, callous, and cold response to this ongoing genocide. Families and survivors of violence are suffering. This is not a journey. This requires urgency, Mr. Speaker. When will this government put in place timelines and the resources needed to save lives?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think as a society, none of us should pretend any form of success until every woman and child and LGBTQ person in this country is safe. And if that's a measure of success, we're failing. The reality is, in this year, the Minister of Crown and Indigenous Relations announced the federal pathway. That's only the beginning, and it was coupled with $2.2 billion of investments. We're coming up on the first anniversary, and we'll be looking to measure those as opposed to the outcomes for the survivors and those that continue to face unacceptable levels of violence. As a society, we have to keep fighting against that and keep fighting for those people that are still vulnerable today. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, the challenges Canada has faced over these past years have been numerous, and we've seen that Canadians and Canadian businesses have taken them head-on and succeeded. The upcoming federal budget will showcase our government's plan to support Canadians and to grow our economy. Can the Minister of Finance inform Canadians and this House when they can expect federal budget 2022 to be presented?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for her question. Our government was re-elected on a commitment to grow our economy, make life more affordable, and to continue building a Canada where nobody gets left behind. That is exactly what we are doing, and that is what we're going to continue to do in the budget that I will present to this House on April 7th, 2022 at 4 p.m. Pursuant to standing
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
To Standing Order 83-2, I ask that an order of the day be designated for that purpose. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cumberland-Colchester.
Mr. Speaker, we have asked this NDP Liberal coalition government to give Canadians hope by outlining the benchmarks used to end federal mandates. Some Canadians, such as Carolyn, are being treated as second-class citizens, unable to work or travel domestically. This issue has failed to receive an answer both at the committee level and here in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, when is this NDP Liberal government going to stop disrespecting the institution of Parliament and give Canadians the plan they so rightly deserve?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for giving me one more opportunity to speak about the importance of vaccination. And just this morning, we were informed of a recent U.S. study that between June and November 2021, had there been more vaccinated Americans, they would have saved about $14 billion in the cost of hospitalizations. 700,000 would not have ended up in a hospital. This, Mr. Speaker, is many lives saved and cared for.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, when lifting COVID mandates in my home province of Saskatchewan, Premier Moe said the following: "It's time to heal the divisions." Premier Moe recognizes something that this Prime Minister simply cannot. The leader must unite Canadians. Instead, our Prime Minister is using every opportunity to divide Canadians based on vaccination status. Dr. Tam has stated that the science supports a review of federal COVID mandates and restrictions. Mr. Speaker, since this government claims to listen to science, why isn't it immediately announcing a plan to lift all federal COVID mandates and restrictions?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The reason we're able to lift restrictions is that we have a large number of people here in Canada who have been vaccinated. I just spoke a moment ago about this recent U.S. study. What I didn't mention, Mr. Speaker, is that in that study, 163,000 deaths would have been averted between June and November last year in the United States had there been more vaccinated Americans during that period.
The honourable member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Mr. Speaker, every citizen of Canada has the right to enter, remain in, and leave Canada. That's not my words, that's the Charter. Vaccine mandates have prevented Canadians from travelling within Canada and outside of Canada. We're also experiencing closures at the borders in my riding that are obstructing essential businesses from operating. A return to regular hours isn't asking for too much. Nobody is winning with this current setup. When will the government end the mandates and fix the mess at the border?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, we're very grateful to the millions, in fact, almost 30 million Canadians who got vaccinated. And that's the reason we're able to avoid now the closing of schools, the shutting down of businesses, restaurants, theaters, cinemas. Mr. Speaker, that's a reason for which we're able on April the 1st now to make it easier for people to travel into Canada by changing the pre-arrival testing rules. This is all very good news, Mr. Speaker, and it's due again to the benefits that we have from vaccination.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
While the provinces have all signalled an end to their vaccine mandates, the Liberals are continuing to punish Canadians who are not vaccinated. Unvaccinated Canadian citizens cannot get on an airplane to fly inside of their own country to attend weddings, funerals, or visit ailing relatives. They are unable to travel for work, impacting their ability to provide for their families. The science does not support this continued discrimination. When will the Prime Minister finally follow the science and end his cruel and vindictive vaccine mandates once and for all?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And cruel is indeed the right word when we speak about the impact of COVID-19 on our families, on our children, our seniors, our economy, our workers, our businesses over the last 2 years. It's been extremely harsh, Mr. Speaker. The reason is that for which we're able to make life more normal now is that we're continuing the fight against COVID. Living with COVID, Mr. Speaker, means continuing the fight against COVID. We can't live without COVID. We have to live with it and continue the fight against it.
The honourable member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, we learn many things today in the PBO's report on Revenue Canada's performance. And amongst other things, we learned that in comparison of more than 150 tax administrations around the world, Revenue Canada ranks second to last in the collection ratio. This means that the agency, the job of which is to collect the money that is owed in taxes to fund services to citizens, is missing more money than just about anything else on the planet. Does the minister have a plan to get Revenue Canada out of the basement of the world rankings, or does she think that this is hockey and she'll just win a draft pick? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the Parliamentary Budget Officer for his important work. Our government has invested a lot in the agency's capacity to ensure compliancy in amongst big companies and international companies. Like the report from the PBO states, the agency has improved its compliance performance for large companies. This is good news, Mr. Speaker. Our investments continue to bear fruit for years to come, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, the minister seems to be happy to be second to last. Mr. Speaker, this is a real fiasco. A fiasco just like the Phoenix system, a fiasco just like the reception of Ukrainian refugees, a fiasco just like the border management during the pandemic, a fiasco just like the First Nations who are still waiting for drinking water, Mr. Speaker. Still the same government, still the same fiascos. We often talk about areas of jurisdiction, Mr. Speaker. In the case of the federal government and Revenue Canada, shouldn't we also be talking about fields of incompetent jurisdiction? The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, contrary to what my colleague across the way is insinuating, the CRA for the past 2 years has been here to support Canadians, families, seniors, in amongst others. And contrary to what the other side would like, we are here to work, not simply to cry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, Tatiana is a Ukrainian who worked with the Canadian forces as an interpreter before the Russian invasion. After she left Ukraine for Poland, she applied for the emergency travel. She tried to get an appointment for biometrics on March 21st, but all the spots were full in many neighboring countries until July 2022. That's over 4 months since she applied, and Tatiana is not alone. When will this government finally honor our adopted motion, get Ukrainians out of this never-ending Liberal-made backlog, and implement visa-free travel?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member raised two issues in his question, one on the requirement to complete biometrics to get here, the other on the execution on the ground. I'd like all members of this House to know that as of yesterday, certain individuals in low-risk cohorts will no longer be required to have biometrics before they are permitted to enter into Canada. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we are putting more resources on the ground, including opening a second visa application office in Warsaw. Another team of people have arrived yesterday in Warsaw. We are moving the resources, as we have since the beginning of this effort, to where people are moving to, so we are in a position to respond as quickly and as nimbly as possible. We'll continue to do that until we get as many people here as we possibly can.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park for Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, the House will vote today on a Conservative motion to allow visa-free travel for Ukrainians who are fleeing Putin's war crimes. Visa-free travel is the compassionate thing and the right thing to do. Opening the door to visa-free travel should be simple and efficient, and yet the government keeps making different excuses. Now, if this motion passes, will the government respect the will of Parliament?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, in my view, it is essential when we move forward with a plan to literally process an unlimited number of applications from a war zone that we have to have some semblance of security screening, particularly when we know there are high-risk travelers that could potentially be eligible. As I shared just a moment ago, certain individuals in the low-risk cohorts, as of yesterday, are no longer required to complete the biometric process. We're using a data-based and evidence-based approach to ensure that we can get people here as quickly as possible with as few barriers as possible. We'll continue to do the right thing and to do the compassionate thing and bring Canadians along with us the whole way.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, Elena, a constituent in my riding of Kelowna Lake Country, is trying to help her sister in Krakow, Poland, who is a refugee from Ukraine. Her sister received a visa requirement biometric instruction letter to go to Warsaw for biometrics. This is a 600-kilometer return trip. Her sister has no way to get there and back and was told if she leaves the hotel in Krakow, she can't return to it. What is she supposed to do? Will the Prime Minister have compassion and remove the Ukrainian refugee visa requirements so that Elena and many others can help their family members from Ukraine and bring them to safety in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I would remind members of this House when we made the decision to create an authorization for emergency travel, the primary motivation at the time was it allowed us to set up a system in a matter of just 2 weeks. We've done that. We've now seen tens of thousands of people apply. Had we gone with the creation of a new system through an electronic travel authorization, which is what we do when we have visa-free travel, it would have taken 12 to 14 weeks, and we would not be taking applications yet today. I shared earlier during question period, Mr. Speaker, that certain individuals from low-risk cohorts will no longer be required to comply with a biometrics requirement. We're using an evidence-based approach to make sure we remove as many barriers as possible to get people to Canada quickly.
The honourable member for Fredericton.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the challenges that Canada has faced in recent years have been many and very complex. But we've seen that Canadians and Canadian businesses have risen to these challenges and succeeded. Thanks to tenacity, the upcoming federal budget will outline a government's plan to support Canadians and grow our economy. Can the Minister for Finance inform Canadians and this House when they can expect the 2022 budget? The Honourable Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the Honourable Member for her question. Our government was re-elected on a commitment to grow our economy, to make life more affordable, and to continue to build a Canada for everyone. And that is exactly what we are doing. And that is exactly what we will continue to do in the budget I will be tabling before the House on the 7th of April 2022 at 4 o'clock.
The honourable member for Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last summer I met with a Popo family who owned shawarma house and pizza in Coburg. The Popos have family members from Afghanistan who are in fear for their lives. Before the Taliban took over, they were women's rights defenders. They were activists for democracy. They were fighting the Taliban in the Afghan army. However, at every twist, every turn, my team has met with roadblocks, with rejection. Mr. Speaker, when will this minister finally show some compassion, some heart, and allow our friends from Afghan, our allies who have done so much for us, to have safe harbor here in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question and for his advocacy for the well-being of Afghans who are fleeing horrifying circumstances on the ground, who seek refuge here in Canada. I'm pleased to share with this House that we now have more than 9,500 Afghan refugees who are already in Canada pursuing a second lease on life. When I was in Western Canada just last week, Mr. Speaker, I had the opportunity to sit down across the table from some of our new arrivals, and they are grateful for the generosity of Canada. I will continue to work every single day to make sure that we remove as many barriers as possible so we can get more Afghan refugees here. We made one of the most substantial commitments in the world to have 40,000 Afghan refugees, and we will not rest until we make good on that promise.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago I asked a question to the Minister for Science and Innovation and the Minister for Rural Economic Development about the lack of mobile phone coverage in my riding and in the rest of rural Canada. The response I received from the Minister for Rural Economic Development was not even on the subject of my question, but on high-speed internet. So I'd like to give the Minister yet another opportunity to respond. What is the government doing to improve cell reception in rural Canada? It's 2022, after all, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for the question. As he knows, the Universal Broadband Fund is just that, connecting Canadians with high-speed internet. And I can advise the honourable member we are well underway to meeting our targets of connecting 98% of Canada by 2026. There are funds available under the CRTC and other programs for cell coverage, but right now we're focused on connecting Canada. We have a plan to connect all Canada by 2030, and that plan is working. We have agreements in place with Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland and Labrador, Alberta, and British Columbia. We're well underway. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Desnethe, Miss Nippy, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, the Hanson Lake Road in northeastern Saskatchewan is a 324-kilometre stretch of highway connecting Creighton, Denair Beach, Flin Flon, and many First Nations to the rest of the province. Unfortunately, there's no cell or broadband service. Not only is this extremely dangerous, it restricts the much-needed economic growth opportunities in the region. I have written and talked to the minister on several occasions with no response. Mr. Speaker, when will this government approve Saskatchewan's application to the CRTC and give these communities what they need for both safety and success?
Here. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. A couple of weeks ago, I was in British Columbia and was humbled by the presentation and the overview I had on the Highway of Tears, where the federal government, the provincial government, and the internet service provider has connected that terrible section of the highway in British Columbia. That's what happens when partnerships happen. That's what happens, the results when people work together, when communities, provinces, territories, Indigenous groups, and municipalities work together. I encourage my honourable colleague to get his province to come to the table with us. As I said earlier, we have commitments now from Ontario members, I understanding with Ontario, BC.
The honourable member for Scarborough Agincourt.
Mr. Speaker, for months, Ontarians have been eagerly awaiting an update on the status of negotiations between provincial and federal governments on a child care agreement. This has been a significant issue for people in my riding of Scarborough Agincourt because we know Ontario families have been paying some of the highest fees in the country. Could the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development please update the House on yesterday's announcement and what it will mean for families in Scarborough and across Ontario?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Families.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to announce in the House today that today in Canada, families from coast to coast to coast will have access to affordable, quality Although we have been negotiating Ontario for months. They finally joined the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Agreement. This means that families in Ontario will have access to reduced fees, 25% reduction as of April 1st. Mr. Speaker, this is great news for families in Ontario.
The honourable member for Churchill, Kiwatanuk-Askey.
Mr. Speaker, the Federal Court of Appeal has ruled that the government cannot simply abandon its responsibilities by transferring the provision of French language services to the provinces. Whilst Francophones in British Columbia and throughout Canada were rejoicing, the government was preparing a nasty surprise. The case will be appealed to the Supreme Court. This is unacceptable. What is the government waiting for to acknowledge its wrongdoing and restore the offer of services in French to Francophones in British Columbia? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government has committed itself to protect and promote the rights of Francophone communities and the Anglophone communities in a minority situation. In this case, we've asked for a brief reprieve from the federal courts because we're concerned by the grave consequences that could be led by the current orders. The deadline, Mr. Speaker, to give a notice of resiliation is today, and we will not be asking authorization to move to the Supreme Court of Canada.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Ottawa was shut down and Windsor suffered an illegal blockade. Windsor's response became a model on how to deal with the crisis despite the economic damages reaching into the billions. For months, I have joined residents, doctors, retailers, manufacturers, and first responders and the city asking for fair compensation for doing the right thing. COVID has burdened border communities, and this government's lack of border policies created confusion and disruption. Ottawa and its businesses are being compensated. Will this government treat Windsor equally by covering the costs we incurred doing our part during this convoy crisis for our country?
The Honourable Minister.
I begin by thanking my honourable colleague for his advocacy throughout the blockades. We remained in close contact along with my colleague, the member for Windsor-Tecumseh. I also want to take a moment to thank law enforcement for doing an exceptional job in bringing a peaceful resolution to the blockades in the Ambassador Bridge. Mr. Speaker, me and other colleagues within this government will remain in touch with my colleague to ensure that Windsor recovers fully from any impacts, and I know that this is work that will continue going forward. Thank you very much.
And that's all the time we have for question period today. I believe we have an appel au règlement, l'honorable député de Mégantic-L'Érable.
Point of order, the Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, during question period today, the Health Minister, maybe inadvertently, forgot to give information to the House about vaccine mandates, and if you seek it, you will find unanimous consent for her to be able to table those documents.
Okay, un ministre n'a pas besoin de la...
The Minister does not need the approval of the House to give this information, so it is up to the Minister to do so.
It being 3:12, pursuant to order made on Thursday, November 25th, 2021, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion concurred on the third report of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. Call in the members. First. Order. Order. The question is the following one. Mr. Halan, seconded by Mr. Genius, moves that the third report of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration presented on Thursday, March 3rd, be concurred in. The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person. All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Mr. Broussard. Mr. Paulus.
Mr. Paulus.
Mr. Deltel.
Mr. Deltel.
Mr. Bazan.
Mr. Bazan.
Mr. Barlow.
Mr. Barlow.
Mr. Chong.
Mr. Chong.
Mr. Fast.
Mr. Fast.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Albus.
Ms. Finley.
Ms. Finley.
Mr. Nader.
Mr. Nader.
Mr. Barrett.
Mr. Barrett.